What's up guys, welcome back to Unlimited Reads. My name is Chris and today I'll be doing my very own original Stephen King book tag so that you can get to know how I became a constant reader and how I became a King fan for life. Now these questions are my own original questions. I haven't looked on the internet or booktube to see what a Stephen King tag looks like as such, so it's all my own. And I thought I'll share with you some of the things that makes me a massive Stephen King fan. So let's go through the questions. First discovered King. Well, it goes all the way back to 1989. I was in year 10. My mother had remarried, so we moved from a larger town to a small town where I felt that I didn't really fit in. I felt invisible, weren't very popular, and I found comfort in books. And I was browsing the stacks one day and I came across a book with a red spine by Stephen King, and I hadn't really known anything about Stephen King at the time. I was very ignorant, had no idea who he was. All I know was that I pulled out this book called Christine, and I thought, looked at the back cover blurb and read about a possessed car, an evil car, and I thought, that is such a cool idea, I have to try this. Went home, read it, devoured it, got hooked instantly, and I just devoured everything that Stephen King had on his backlist at the time. So I went back and read Carrie and Salem's Lot and The Shining, and just became an instant fan, and still am to this day. It doesn't matter what Stephen King writes, I'll always read it. There have been some hit and misses along the way, but he is my favourite author of all time for many reasons. The Shining has to be my favourite of all time. I love the book. It scared the shit out of me when I first read it as a kid, and I tend to look at reading it every few years or so. I find it's the best example of how a character evolves over time, particularly Jack Torrance, how he descends into an abyss of madness. He starts off in the book troubled because he's trying to recover from alcoholism and has many demons which the Overlook Hotel preys upon. But Danny's psychic powers are incredible in the book. There are so many awesome scenes. You know, the relationship between Dick Halloran, the caretaker, and Danny at the start of the book is great. I think the tension is top notch. When trouble starts at the Overlook and things shit really starts to hit the fan, Danny, using his psychic powers, calls out telepathically to Dick Halloran, who is all the way down in Florida on vacation. So you can imagine the scope of Danny's psychic power and why the hotel wants it. And obviously Dick Halloran comes on the run and tries to make it up to Colorado before things get really bad. And you know, one of the most exciting, tense scenes and scary scenes was when the topiary hedges came to life in the book. No movie or adaptation can come close to what your imagination can do in reading those scenes. So yeah, it is just a fantastic book. Absolutely love it. My least favourite Stephen King book would have to be From a Buick 8. I thought it was really out there. It was really far-fetched. You know, it had vague parallels to The Mist, but yeah, I just couldn't get into it. I think I forced myself to finish it, but at the end of the book I felt this did not do anything for me. So as good as Stephen King is, he has had a couple of misses with me over the years, but From a Buick 8 stands out in my mind as probably my least favourite of all his works. This one's easy. My favourite King collection would be Skeleton Crew. I love it because The Mist is my favourite story out of the whole book, but it has a lot of other really good stories as well. It has Survivor Type, Uncle Otto's Truck, just to name a few, but it is a really awesome collection, and it's one that I would probably read again very soon. I haven't read it in a few years, but yeah, I really do need to get stuck into it again and relive those fantastic stories. Wow, the scariest book I've probably read by King would have to be Pet Sematary. It scared me more than The Shining did. For a number of reasons. Obviously, Zelda is one of those characters that scares the shit out of you. She's the disfigured and deformed sister hidden in the back room. It's a story about how Lewis Creed, caught up in the grief of his dead son, takes him to an old Indian burial ground and buries him, and of course Gage Creed comes back to life and kills people. Very, very frightening. I read it when I was very young, and I haven't read it since. I haven't been game enough. Maybe I just need to grow a set and read it again, because people do say that your perspective of the book changes when you become an adult, and more importantly, a parent. So I'm curious to see what I might think of it for the second time round, and yeah, I might have to do that sooner rather than later, but no book comes close to scaring me as much as Pet Sematary did. Top 3 King adaptations. Well, look, this is an unpopular opinion. One of my favourite adaptations is the 1997 miniseries of The Shining. I really like the original Shining with Jack Nicholson. I think that's one of his best performances ever. Really have a soft spot for that one. But the miniseries is a very, very faithful adaptation. It's long, it goes for ages. I think it goes for 3 or 4 hours. I think the casting of Stephen Weaver as Jack Torrance was great. He did a really good job. The only casting decision I would question would be Cortland Mead as Danny. Just didn't like him as Danny. Don't know why. But you know, the whole thing was overall really good, and one of my favourites. To combine these next 2 adaptations, I'll class them as one, and that will be It Chapter 1 and Chapter 2. I thought the producers and directors did a really good job with that. I thought the casting decisions were really good, and it was pretty faithful to the book, and Pennywise was as scary as fuck. So I think they did a really good job. But my favourite Stephen King adaptation would have to be The Shawshank Redemption. It's a movie I've seen countless times. I know it off by heart. I love the characters. There is not one thing I don't like about that movie, and it does happen to be my favourite movie of all time. Shamedly, shame on me, I haven't actually read Rita Hayworth and Shawshank Redemption before. I own different seasons. I just haven't gotten around to reading it. Maybe I should, so that I can make a comparison with how the movie fares up against the source material. But it's meant to be very true to the novella, and yeah, I really need to get my ass in gear and read it. But yeah, the Shawshank Redemption, my absolute favourite King adaptation. My least favourite adaptations, one that immediately comes to mind is The Lawnmower Man from 1992. It wasn't even based on the story, it was pathetic, and so much so that Stephen King fought tooth and nail to have his name removed from the project. And when the opening credits come up with the title, you can see Stephen King's name very faint, because the producers and director had to insist that his name appear on it. Another one that comes to mind would probably be... Just trying to think, there's been so many adaptations. Probably The Night Flyer, which I didn't really care for. They're the only ones I can think of right at the moment. But yeah, there aren't many adaptations that I didn't like, but maybe those 2. Favourite cameo role? I would have to say the geeky pharmacist in Thinner. I thought he was really good in that. He just played the role really well, and he just embodied the geeky pharmacist, and I just thought that was probably the best cameo that I've seen him in. Well, the first time I saw a Stephen King movie on the big screen was way back in 1990. This was when I was participating in a school work experience program where we were in a small town and we had to travel down to Melbourne to stay the week in a youth hostel and experience what life in the real world would be like by working jobs in shops and whatnot. I think we got $5 a day for our trouble, and it was a hell of an experience. But one time during downtime, we went to the movies together as a group, and we got the choice of what we saw. And there were two movies screening at the time. One was Silence of the Lambs, and the other was Misery, with Kathy Bates and James Caan. And can you guess which one I picked? I was the only one that went in and saw Misery on my own. Everyone else went and saw Silence of the Lambs, and I thought, oh, fuck yous all. I'm going to see a Stephen King movie. And it was a fantastic experience in the cinema because of the whole jump scares, and Kathy Bates' performance was incredible. She did get an Oscar for it, which was very well deserved. But, you know, the tension when Paul Sheldon he's escaped from his wheelchair and he's hobbling, dragging himself on his stomach around the house, trying to find a way out, and then she starts pulling up in the driveway and he has to make that mad dash back to his wheelchair and lock the door. It is just an incredible movie. It's probably one of my, it would come close to being my second favourite adaptation besides The Shawshank Redemption. It is a great, great movie, and if you haven't seen that movie, I seriously can't praise it enough. You have to see it if you haven't already seen it. But yeah, definitely a really good cinematic experience of the Stephen King universe. Favourite first line? Well, that's a simple one. It comes from my favourite book of all time, The Shining, and it goes like this. Jack Torrance thought, a vicious little prick. It opens up the book really, really well. Coming a close second would be The Man in Black fled across the desert and the gunslinger followed from the Dark Tower. Really close second on that one, but no, The Shining's opening line is my absolute favourite there. Do you know what? I'd really like to see a remake of Christine. I love the 1983 movie. It is one of my favourites. But then again, you know, I'm cautiously optimistic because I think it's in development. Nothing concrete has been announced. I don't think they even have a cast yet. All I know is that it's going to be set in the 80s. But you know, I don't even know whether they're going to use a Plymouth Fury as the car, because they are as rare as hen's teeth. I don't know how they'd pull it off. So I'm going to be very mildly curious as to what vehicle they choose to possess Christine with. It could be anything. It could be a Camaro, it could be a Firebird, I don't know. But it's certainly a movie I most want to see adapted. But I don't want them to fuck up the original or disrespect the original movie in any way. But if someone is smart enough to do something really good with it, yeah, well, I want to see it on the big screen or as a TV series, because the you know, the 1983 movie is an absolute classic. There are so many lines that I can quote from that movie. There's one line in particular which I won't say on this channel, which makes me laugh every time I see it. But yeah, I just love the 1958 Plymouth Fury. It's a beautiful car, and it's going to be next to impossible to pick a suitable successor in a vehicle to play the proverbial role of Christine. But yeah, time will tell. I don't know when the movie will be produced or made, but it's certainly probably the movie I want to see the most. So there you go, guys. That is it for my original Stephen King book tag. Hope you liked it. Now you know a bit more about me and how I became a Stephen King fan. As always, if you have any feedback, chuck them in the comments below. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. And coming up on the channel next, I've got my review of Stinger by Robert R. McCammon. I'm almost finished the book. At the time of filming this, I've got about 50 pages to go. I'm going to smash through it as soon as I can and get my review out to you all next week. So watch out for that one. So until the next video, guys, I'll see you later.